I'm Ava Thompson, 22 years old, and the first person in my family to graduate college after working multiple jobs for 4 years to pay tuition. My big day finally arrived, but instead of proud parents in the audience, I received a last minute text. Sorry, honey, the Adams' Super Bowl party was planned months ago. I walked across that stage, a loan diploma in hand, smiled for the photographer, and then broke down crying in the parking lot. That moment changed everything. Before I share what happened next, drop a comment, letting me know where you're watching from. If you've ever been let down by family on your biggest day, hit subscribe and stay with me. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most beautiful beginnings. I grew up in Oakwood Heights, a middle-class suburb about 40 minutes outside of Chicago, in a 3-bedroom ranch house with fading blue paint and a patchy lawn my father never quite got around to fixing. My dad, Ethan Carter, worked construction jobs that kept him busy 6 days a week during good weather months and sporadically employed during winters. My mom, Sophia Bennett, worked part-time as a receptionist at a local dentist's office, though she frequently called in sick when her favorite TV shows had season finales or when her friend group planned shopping trips. Neither of my parents finished more than high school, with dad barely graduating and mom scraping by with C-minuses. Education was never valued in our household. Homework was something to rush through. Report cards were glanced at, then tossed on the counter without comment, and teacher conferences were attended only when absolutely required, with my parents checking their watches every few minutes. I was different from the start. I devoured books by flashlight under my covers, created science projects without any help, and pushed myself to earn straight A's despite zero encouragement from home. The pattern started early. In 3rd grade, I won the science fair with a project on plant photosynthesis I'd worked on for weeks, but neither parent showed up because dad had a poker game and mom didn't want to drive in light rain. In middle school, when I made the honor roll every quarter, they skipped the recognition ceremony because their favorite restaurant was having a 2-for-1 special that same night. High school brought more of the same. When I was named valedictorian, they complained about having to sit through a boring ceremony rather than expressing pride. I remember rehearsing my college application essays at our kitchen table while mom watched reality TV at full volume in the adjacent living room, occasionally yelling at me to keep my voice down. Despite everything, I was determined to break the cycle. I applied to 17 colleges in secret using fee waivers. My guidance counselor helped me find. When acceptance letters arrived, I hid them in a shoebox under my bed. The day Northwestern University offered me a partial academic scholarship was the first time I allowed myself to truly hope. I rehearsed how I'd tell my parents for hours, anticipating their inevitable skepticism. That night, I announced my acceptance over dinner, explaining how the scholarship would cover 60% of tuition. Dad kept eating his meatloaf, barely looking up. "College is a waste of money," he said. "My buddy's son went for 2 years and now he's managing the same grocery store he could have worked at right out of high school." Mom at least pretended to be happy, though her first question was whether I'd be commuting so I could continue helping with housework. I spent the next 3 months convincing them college wouldn't bankrupt us, researching student loans myself, applying for every scholarship I could find, and promising I'd work part-time throughout. When move-in day came, Dad helped load my few belongings into our aging minivan but complained about gas prices the entire 2-hour drive. Mom reminded me 4 times not to waste money on university-branded clothing because regular clothes are the same thing without the logo. They dropped me off at my dorm with a quick hug and were gone before I'd finished paperwork at the check-in desk, eager to beat weekend traffic back to the suburbs. Standing in my empty half of the dorm room that August afternoon, I promised myself I'd make every sacrifice worth it. Those 4 years at Northwestern tested every ounce of my determination. The first semester of freshman year hit like a tidal wave. The academic rigor was beyond anything I'd experienced with professors who assigned hundreds of pages of reading weekly and expected thoughtful participation from everyone. Within 2 weeks, I secured a job at the campus cafe, working 30 hours weekly while carrying a full course load. My schedule became a military operation. Classes from morning until mid-afternoon, cafe shifts until closing, then studying until 2:00 a.m. in the library before starting again. My roommate Olivia Hayes, a business major from Seattle with emerald green highlights in her dark hair, initially thought I was antisocial until she realized I simply couldn't afford downtime. "You work harder than anyone I've ever met," she said one night, finding me half asleep over economics textbooks. She became my first real friend there, forcing me to take occasional study breaks and leaving encouraging sticky notes on my desk during finals week. I joined a study group with three other scholarship students: Noah Rivera, a pre-med student who memorized flashcards on the bus; Mia Collins, a future engineer who could explain calculus concepts like she was telling an interesting story; and Lucas Patel, an accounting major who organized our weekly meetups with color-coded schedules. We bonded over shared financial anxieties and celebrated each other's small victories. My parents rarely entered this new world. During freshman year, I called home weekly, eager to share my experiences. When I excitedly told Mom about acing my first university-level economics exam, she interrupted with a 10-minute story about neighborhood gossip. Dad's responses to my academic achievements were typically, "That's nice," or "Don't let it go to your head." Their questions focused exclusively on whether I was spending too much or if I could send money home for unexpected car repairs. By sophomore year, our calls dwindled to monthly check-ins that left me emotionally drained. I added a second job as a research assistant for Professor Harper in the economics department, which meant transcribing interviews and organizing data 20 hours weekly on top of my cafe shifts and coursework. I subsisted on cafe leftovers and ramen noodles, calculating the exact minimum grocery budget to avoid malnutrition. Junior year, despite my schedule, I joined the First Generation College Students Association, eventually becoming its treasurer. We organized networking events and created a mentorship program, pairing freshmen with upperclassmen who understood their unique challenges. Despite bloodshot eyes and perpetual exhaustion, I maintained my GPA above 3.8, making the dean's list every semester. My parents visited campus exactly twice in 4 years, once during freshman orientation because it was required, and once sophomore year when they were driving through Chicago to visit Dad's cousin. Both times they complained about parking costs, rushed through campus tours, and asked when I'd be finishing, so I could get a real job. Meanwhile, I watched Olivia's parents mail her care packages monthly and drive 6 hours to attend her minor performances in campus theater productions. Noah's mother called him daily, asking detailed questions about his classes and sending encouraging texts before each difficult exam. The contrast twisted something in my chest, though I pushed the feeling away, focusing on building my own chosen family. By senior year, I'd secured a prestigious internship with a tech startup in downtown Chicago. Those 20 weekly hours on top of my other 2 jobs meant I slept about 4 hours nightly, but the connections proved invaluable. My supervisor became a mentor who eventually offered me a full-time position at their Seattle headquarters after graduation. When I shared this news with my parents during Thanksgiving break, Dad asked, "Why would you move so far away just for a job?" Mom complained about Seattle's constant rain. As graduation approached, I tried pushing away creeping anxiety about whether they'd actually attend. "Of course we'll be there," Mom assured me in January. "We wouldn't miss our only daughter's big day." I desperately wanted to believe her. Spring semester senior year became a blur of thesis completion, job preparation, and graduation planning. My economics thesis, analyzing impact investment strategies in developing markets, consumed most of my waking hours, with Professor Harper pushing me to make it publication-worthy. Simultaneously, my future employer sent weekly onboarding paperwork and training materials, expecting me to complete them alongside my academic responsibilities. Despite everything, anticipatory joy about graduation sustained me. After 17 years of education, thousands of hours studying and working, and countless sacrifices, I would walk across that stage as the first Thompson to earn a college degree. 3 months before the ceremony, I mailed formal graduation announcements to my small circle, including an embossed invitation for my parents with ceremony details, campus maps, and nearby restaurant recommendations. Mom called after receiving it unusually enthusiastic. "We've already requested time off work. Dad's even planning to rent a nicer car for the drive-up." This unexpected excitement released tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I immediately booked them a reasonably priced hotel room close to campus, putting the $379 charge on my nearly maxed out credit card as an investment in making the weekend special. I reserved a table at Osteria Lagona, an Italian restaurant just fancy enough to feel celebratory, without being ostentatious, calculating I could cover dinner if I worked double shifts at the cafe for 2 weekends. Each Sunday night, I called home with graduation updates, counting down the weeks. "Just 7 more weeks, can you believe it?" Then, "Only 30 days now." Mom always responded affirmatively, though I noticed her enthusiasm waning slightly with each call. 6 weeks out, she mentioned a potential work conflict for Dad, but assured me he'd figure it out. 1 month before, when I called to confirm their hotel reservation details, Mom answered distractedly, asking me to call back later because she was watching a season finale. 5 weeks before graduation, Northwestern sent an email about ordering caps and gowns. I splurged on the higher quality photographs package, imagining the professional shot of me flanked by my proud parents becoming their first framed college memory of me. I ordered 3 ceremony tickets, one for each parent, and a spare for emergencies, paying the campus printing office to create a decorative holder for them. 2 weeks before the ceremony, during our weekly call, Mom casually mentioned something that stopped my heart. By the way, honey, there might be a little conflict with your graduation weekend. The Adamses always host this amazing Super Bowl party, and they specifically asked if we'd come this year. I told them we have your thing that weekend, but Chloe said they're making Dad's favorite buffalo chicken dip, and everyone from the neighborhood will be there. I sat on my dorm room floor phone pressed to my ear, struggling to process her words. My graduation wasn't just on Super Bowl weekend. It was scheduled for noon on Sunday hours before any game would start. Mom, the ceremony is at noon. The Super Bowl doesn't start until after 6:00 p.m. You could easily do both, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Oh, but the Adamses' pre-party starts at 2 and it's almost an hour's drive back from your school. We'd have to rush, and you know how traffic gets, she replied. Plus, we'd miss the commercials, which are the best part. My chest tightened as I realized she was actually weighing these options as if they were equivalent. Mom, this is my college graduation. I've worked 4 years for this. I'm the first person in our family to graduate. Please tell me you're not seriously considering skipping it for a party you could attend any year. Her sigh carried through the phone. Don't be dramatic, Ava. We'll try to make both work okay. Let me talk to your father and figure something out. That night, I barely slept, staring at the ceiling as anxiety gnawed at my stomach. The week before graduation, I texted daily confirmation requests, receiving increasingly delayed and non-committal responses. I picked up my cap and gown, running my fingers over the smooth fabric while blinking back tears in the campus store. I confirmed my restaurant reservation, reducing it from 4 people to possibly 3. The day before graduation, I cleaned my apartment, prepared a simple breakfast for the morning, and laid out my dress and shoes. My phone remained ominously silent until 10:37 p.m. when it finally rang. Mom's voice came through with forced cheerfulness. Hi, sweetie. Listen, I'm so sorry, but we've decided we just can't make it tomorrow. Your dad threw his back out lifting something heavy, and I'd have to drive alone, and you know how I hate highway driving. Plus, the Adamses are really counting on us bringing the layered taco dip, and Chloe would be so disappointed. Each word felt like a physical blow. You're not coming at all, I whispered. It's just one ceremony, honey. They're all the same boring speeches and everyone wearing the same outfit. We're really proud of you, you know that. Maybe you can take a video for us or see if they sell DVDs of it. I hung up shortly after, unable to continue the conversation through my tears. Sitting alone in my apartment graduation gown hanging on my closet door, I allowed myself 30 minutes of sobbing before setting my alarm. Tomorrow would come regardless. Graduation. Morning dawned bright and clear, early May sunshine streaming through my bedroom blinds as my alarm chirped at 7:00 a.m. My phone screen showed congratulatory texts from Olivia Noah and Professor Harper, but nothing from my parents. I forced down half a piece of toast while getting ready, my stomach too knotted for a proper breakfast. The apartment felt unnaturally quiet as I zipped my dress, applied minimal makeup, and carefully positioned my cap, securing it with extra bobby pins against the spring breeze. Standing before the mirror in my black graduation gown tassel hanging correctly from the right side, I practiced smiling until it almost looked natural. In one last desperate attempt, I called both parents' numbers, reaching voicemail each time. I left a simple message. It's graduation day. The ceremony starts at noon. I saved you seats. Please come. The university had transformed the main quad into a sea of white folding chairs facing an elevated stage adorned with purple Northwestern banners. Students clustered in nervous, excited groups, adjusting each other's caps and taking photos. Everywhere I looked, proud. Families embraced graduates, fathers straightening sons' ties, mothers dabbing tears while positioning themselves for perfect pictures, grandparents hobbling across the lawn with canes and walkers, determined to witness their grandchildren's achievement regardless of physical discomfort. Siblings wore t-shirts with graduates' faces printed on them, holding handmade signs and flower bouquets. I clutched my empty graduation ticket holder, scanning the growing crowd for familiar faces that wouldn't appear. Olivia spotted me standing alone and rushed over her parents, following with warm smiles. Ava, my parents brought you a graduation lead too. She draped the fragrant white flowers around my neck as her mother hugged me impulsively. We're so proud of you, honey. Olivia tells us how hard you've worked. Their kindness nearly broke my composure. I thanked them, making excuses about my parents running late before escaping to the graduate check-in area. We filed into alphabetical order, Professor Quinn helping straighten our lines as we prepared to process in. I kept glancing back at the family seating area, heart jumping whenever I saw someone with my mother's hair color or my father's build, then sinking again with each mistaken identity. The ceremony began with pomp and circumstance echoing across the quad as we marched to our seats. Throughout the university president's welcome and the keynote speaker's address, I continued searching the crowd, squinting against the sunlight to examine each late arrival. As the economics department graduates were called, my row stood and moved toward the stage steps. 4 people ahead of me, my phone vibrated in the pocket I'd sewn inside my gown. Pulling it out quickly, I saw a Facebook notification my mother had posted new photos tagged Adams's Super Bowl pre-party prep, showing our kitchen counter covered with snack platters and beer coolers time-stamped 18 minutes ago. I shoved the phone away as my name echoed through the speakers. Ava Thompson, Bachelor of Science in Economics, summa cum laude. Walking across that stage took every ounce of strength I possessed. I shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma case, and smiled for the photographer as instructed hearing, only scattered applause where other graduates had received enthusiastic cheers. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Olivia and her parents standing clapping vigorously from their seats. Noah's entire extended family whistled from the back row. I returned to my seat, diploma clutched tightly, breathing slowly to control tears threatening to escape. After the ceremony ended and mortarboards flew skyward, the quad transformed into a celebration zone. Families swarmed, graduates' cameras flashed continuously, and laughter mingled with happy tears. I stood awkwardly at the periphery, watching the scene unfold like a movie I wasn't cast in. Olivia found me, quickly insisting I join her family's photos. "Get in here, Thompson, your honorary family today." Her father positioned me beside Olivia. Her mother straightened my honors cords and they took several shots before handing me their contact information to receive the pictures later. Noah's mother pressed a card into my hand with a generous gift card inside, whispering that she was so impressed with anyone graduating debt-free through hard work. Their kindness, while genuine, highlighted the absence I couldn't ignore. After 30 minutes of forced smiles and declining various family lunch invitations, I made excuses about meeting my parents elsewhere, walking rapidly across campus toward the parking lot, vision blurring. I barely made it to my car before the first sob escaped. Sitting behind the wheel of my 15-year-old Honda, still wearing my graduation gown, I finally released the grief I'd been holding back. Tears streamed down my face as I pounded the steering wheel, years of disappointment culminating in this ultimate rejection. Between gasping breaths, I scrolled through my phone to find another photo my mother had posted, a selfie with neighborhood friends, red plastic cups raised toward the camera, captioned, "Super Bowl Sunday is better than any ceremony." The timestamp showed it was posted during the exact moment I'd walked across the stage. Something broke inside me then, some final thread of hope that perhaps they had cared all along but simply showed it differently. Wiping mascara from my cheeks with my graduation gown sleeve, I started the car and drove away from campus, leaving behind both my university years and my illusions about family. Sunday evening found me alone in my apartment, surrounded by half-packed moving boxes and takeout containers from the celebratory dinner Olivia had insisted on bringing me before leaving with her parents. I'd smiled through our meal, assuring her I was fine, that I understood my parents' absence, that I wasn't really that upset. The moment her car pulled away, my carefully maintained facade crumbled. I spent hours alternating between crying and staring blankly at the wall, replaying not just this disappointment, but years of similar moments, elementary school art shows where my drawing hung unviewed high school awards nights, when I accepted certificates while scanning empty audience chairs, college acceptance letters met with indifference. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by dreams where I walked across endless stages, looking for faces that never appeared. Monday morning, my phone chimed with a text from Mom. "How did your graduation thing go? Did they take good pictures?" No acknowledgement of their absence, no apology, not even a congratulations. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on. "It was important to me. I really wanted you and Dad there. It hurt that you chose a party instead." Her response came quickly. "Don't be so sensitive. These ceremonies are all the same anyway. Your cousin Isabella skipped her own graduation because they're so boring. It's just walking across the stage, not like you performed brain surgery. The party was really fun. The Adamses had this amazing 7-layer dip." I set my phone down, too emotionally exhausted to explain why her response deepened rather than healed the wound. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in a blur of apartment cleaning, donation sorting, and job preparation. My parents didn't call, and I lacked the energy to reach out. On Thursday afternoon, 3 days after graduation, my phone displayed my father's number the first time he'd called directly in months. A small, foolish hope flickered in my chest. Perhaps they'd realized their mistake. Maybe they were finally calling to apologize, to acknowledge the milestone they'd missed. I answered with cautious optimism. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, kiddo," he replied, using the childhood nickname that had once made me feel special. "Your mother and I were talking, and we wanted to check in on you getting all settled with that new job." The conversation started normally enough surface-level questions about my apartment, when I'd be moving, whether Seattle weather would bother me. I began to relax slightly, telling myself perhaps this was their way of making amends. Then came the pivot I should have anticipated. "So listen, Ava, the real reason I'm calling is we've got a bit of a situation at home. The dishwasher flooded the kitchen floor yesterday, and when the plumber came, he found all kinds of issues with the pipes. Turns out we need about $3,000 worth of repairs, and our credit cards are maxed out right now." The familiar sinking feeling returned to my stomach as he continued. "We figured since you'll be starting that fancy job soon, maybe you could help your old man out with a loan. You can probably get one of those low-interest graduate loans or something, right? We'd pay you back eventually, of course." I sat on my bed, stunned into silence. Not only had they missed the most important day of my academic life for a party, but their first contact afterward was to ask for money. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of my achievement, just another withdrawal from an emotional bank account that had been in overdraft for years. "Ava, you still there?" Dad prompted. "I'm here," I replied quietly. "I'm just surprised. I haven't even started my job yet. I don't get my first paycheck for almost a month, and I have to pay first and last month's rent on a Seattle apartment, plus moving expenses." "Well, your mother mentioned you got some graduation money from relatives. Maybe you could use that. After everything we've done for you, putting a roof over your head all those years, it seems like you could help out the family a little. That's what family does." My throat tightened. "I'll need to think about it. I'll call you back." I hung up before he could pressure me further, then sat motionless, phone clutched in my hand. The sheer audacity of their request crystallized years of similar patterns I'd normalized or excused growing up. I'd interpreted their behavior as busy parents doing their best. In college, I told myself they simply didn't understand academia. Now, with painful clarity, I recognized the one-way nature of our relationship. I was expected to accommodate their needs while mine remained permanently secondary. The next morning, I called the University Counseling Center, where graduating seniors still had access to services for 1 month post-graduation. The counselor, Dr. Riley, listened attentively as I described both the graduation absence and the financial request. "Ava, what you're describing sounds like a pattern of emotional neglect," she said gently. "Your feelings of hurt and betrayal are completely valid. The question now is what boundaries you need to set for your own well-being." We discussed healthy family dynamics versus obligation-based relationships, the difference between helping family and enabling harmful patterns. For the first time, I verbalized a thought that had lurked beneath the surface for years. Perhaps maintaining close ties with my parents wasn't mandatory. Perhaps distance, both geographic and emotional, might be the healthiest choice. Dr. Riley helped me draft scripts for setting boundaries, emphasizing that I shouldn't make decisions from guilt or obligation. As I left her office, a phone notification showed 3 missed calls from my mother. I felt the weight of an imminent decision. Would I continue the cycle of disappointment and one-sided giving, or would I finally prioritize my own well-being? That night became one of the longest of my life. Sleeplessness punctuated by racing thoughts and unexpected tears. I lay awake replaying the counseling session, mentally cataloging every significant parental disappointment from my childhood through graduation. Around 3:00 a.m., I found myself creating a balance sheet in my economics-trained mind, emotional investments versus returns patterns of behavior, predictive indicators for future interactions. By dawn, exhaustion had cleared away any remaining illusions. I'd spent my entire life seeking approval from people constitutionally incapable of providing it. My laptop glowed in the pre-dawn darkness as I researched one-way flights to Seattle. My new job wasn't scheduled to begin for 3 weeks, but the company had mentioned flexibility. An early morning email to my future supervisor, Amelia Foster, explained my situation in professional terms. "Due to unexpected changes in my housing situation, I'm wondering if it might be possible to start slightly earlier than our agreed-upon date." Her response arrived while I was showering. "Absolutely, we'd love to have you sooner. We offer 2 weeks of corporate housing for relocating employees. Let me know your preferred arrival date, and I'll make arrangements." A strange lightness filled my chest, the sensation of chains loosening. I opened my banking app, reviewing my meager savings, $1, $237 in my checking account, plus $820 in graduation gifts from relatives and professors. Combined with the corporate housing offer, it would be enough for a security deposit and modest furniture. I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle for the following Tuesday, the soonest date that allowed me to properly pack and ship my belongings. The ticket confirmation email felt like a declaration of independence. Olivia returned from her family's post-graduation trip that afternoon. I explained my accelerated plans over coffee at our kitchen counter. "Wow, that's fast," she said, eyes widening. "But honestly, after what your parents did, I completely understand you wanting a fresh start." She helped me research shipping options for my books and winter clothes, offering to store anything I couldn't immediately take. "What about your parents?" she eventually asked. "Have you told them?" I shook my head. "I'm going to text them once everything's finalized. I'm not ready for another phone call right now." That evening, I composed the hardest message I'd ever written. "Mom and Dad, I've decided to move to Seattle next week to start my new position earlier than planned. I'm not in a financial position to help with the house repairs. I need some space to process everything, including your absence at graduation. I'll send my new address once I'm settled." Their response came within minutes, my mother calling repeatedly, my father sending increasingly agitated texts. "This is how you treat family after everything we've done for you. You're being selfish and ungrateful." The final message struck deepest. "If you leave like this, don't expect us to welcome you back when that job doesn't work out." For the first time, their words didn't devastate me. Instead, they confirmed I was making the right choice. I silenced notifications from their numbers and focused on packing. The weekend passed in a flurry of activity, donating furniture to incoming international students, shipping 8 boxes of books and winter clothes, cleaning my apartment to ensure a full security deposit return. Olivia and our friend group organized an impromptu goodbye dinner Sunday night at our favorite pizza place. "To Ava," Noah toasted, raising his soda glass, "who's brave enough to chase her dreams 3,000 miles away." Mia presented me with a Seattle guidebook, each friend having marked their recommended spots in different colored highlighters. Lucas had created a detailed spreadsheet of Seattle neighborhoods with cost of living comparisons. These people who'd shown up for my presentations, celebrated my achievements, and supported my challenges represented what real support looked like. That night, as I prepared to sleep on a borrowed air mattress in my empty bedroom, I unblocked my parents' numbers long enough to send one final message. "I'm leaving Tuesday morning. I need time and space to build my own life. I'll reach out when I'm ready." Then I turned off my phone, completely unwilling to let their response affect my resolve. Monday brought final errands, closing my local bank account, picking up my official diploma from campus administration, getting a haircut for job interviews. I walked through campus one last time, saying goodbye to classrooms where I'd discovered my academic passion and the library corners where I'd studied through countless nights. Standing in front of the economics building, I silently thanked Professor Harper for believing in my potential when I'd barely believed in myself. "Making a run for it, huh?" The voice behind me belonged to Professor Harper herself, campus coffee in hand, observing me with knowing eyes. "Starting fresh," I corrected, managing a smile. "Seattle's lucky to get you, Thompson. I've recommended plenty of students to companies over the years, but few with your determination." She handed me her business card with a personal email written on the back. "Keep in touch. I expect great things." Her simple acknowledgement of my worth felt more validating than any recognition my parents could have offered. Tuesday morning arrived with unexpected clarity. I woke before my alarm, packed my remaining possessions into 2 suitcases, and called a rideshare to the airport. As the car pulled away from my apartment building, I didn't look back. The university campus, the coffee shop where I'd worked countless shifts, the economics building where I discovered my passion, all receded in the rear window. Ahead lay uncertainty, yes, but also possibility, unshackled from expectations I could never meet. My phone remained off until I reached my gate at O'Hare Airport. When I finally powered it on, dozens of notifications appeared, mostly supportive messages from friends, but also several missed calls from my parents. I deleted their voicemails without listening. As boarding began for my flight to Seattle, I posted a simple social media update. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter, Seattle bound." The accompanying photo showed only my hand holding my boarding pass engagement ring, conspicuously absent from my finger. I'd returned it to Mason Brooks 3 days earlier, another difficult but necessary unburdening. As the plane accelerated down the runway, I felt myself lifting, not just physically but emotionally, rising above patterns too deeply entrenched to change, soaring toward a horizon where I could finally define success on my own terms. The plane touched down at SeaTac Airport under typical Pacific Northwest skies, pearlescent gray clouds occasionally parting to reveal stunning mountain views before closing again like theater curtains. With just 2 suitcases containing my most essential belongings, I navigated to ground transportation, feeling strangely unburdened. My company-arranged car service driver held a sign reading Thompson Technovate Inc., the first time I'd seen my name displayed with professional recognition. The driver, Layla Morgan, chatted amiably during our 40-minute journey downtown, pointing out landmarks and offering practical tips about Seattle living. "First time in the city?" she asked, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. "First time starting completely fresh," I replied, watching raindrops race down the window glass. The corporate apartment exceeded my expectations, a furnished studio on the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The kitchenette contained basic cookware and a welcome basket with Seattle coffee artisan chocolate, and a handwritten note from Amelia, "Welcome to Seattle and Technovate. Can't wait to have you on board." I spent that first evening unpacking my limited possessions and watching ferries cross the water against the backdrop of a spectacular sunset that painted the sky in gradient shades of orange and purple. My phone occasionally lit up with texts from college friends checking on my arrival, but nothing from my parents since I'd blocked their numbers before departure. The silence felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying. My first day at Technovate began with new hire orientation, where I met 4 other recent graduates joining various departments. The company culture immediately struck me as different from previous workplaces. The CEO personally welcomed each new employee, sharing the company's origin story and vision with genuine enthusiasm. My department manager, Charlotte Evans, spent an hour discussing my role as a financial analyst, emphasizing growth opportunities rather than just immediate responsibilities. My desk featured a small welcome pack with company-branded items and a list of lunch spots within walking distance. "First week tradition, new hires don't eat alone," explained Elijah Kim, a fellow analyst who joined the company 6 months earlier. Tall, with curly black hair and rectangular glasses, Elijah appointed himself my unofficial Seattle guide. "Mandatory coffee run at 3 when the afternoon slump hits," he informed me, stopping by my desk precisely at 3 each day that first week. Through Elijah, I met other young professionals in the building: Harper Nguyen from marketing, who organized weekend hiking trips; Owen Sullivan from IT, who ran a board game night; Zoe Patel from legal, who taught yoga classes Saturday mornings. I initially declined their invitations, using apartment hunting as my excuse, but Elijah persisted. "Seattle's a hard city to crack socially," he warned over Friday lunch. "Rain keeps people indoors half the year. If you don't make connections now, winter gets lonely." Recognizing the wisdom in his warning, I joined their Saturday exploration of Pike Place Market, discovering food stalls and artisan shops while learning Seattle's intricate neighborhood geography. My temporary housing arrangement gave me 2 weeks to find permanent accommodation. Evenings and the first weekend became dedicated to apartment hunting in neighborhoods Elijah had recommended. Capitol Hill attracted me with its vibrant energy and walkability, though prices initially seemed daunting. A stroke of luck came when Zoe mentioned her building had a vacancy, a small 1-bedroom in a 1920s brick building with character details like crown molding and hardwood floors. The location allowed me to walk to work, saving transportation costs, and the landlord proved flexible on deposit timing when I explained my new job situation. Moving in required creative budgeting. I purchased only essential furniture from secondhand stores and discount retailers, creating a spare but functional space that felt entirely mine. My parents' attempts at contact continued sporadically, text messages alternating between guilt tactics, "Can't believe you'd abandon your family like this," and financial pressure, "The plumber needs payment by Friday." Each message I read but didn't respond to strengthened my resolve. With Dr. Riley's counseling guidance still fresh, I practiced setting mental boundaries even when physical ones were in place. 1 month into Seattle, life came a significant milestone: my first proper paycheck. The direct deposit notification on my phone represented more than financial compensation. It symbolized independence earned through years of sacrifice and determination. That evening, I walked to a local bank branch and opened both checking and savings accounts, allocating 15% of my income to emergency savings rather than sending money home as I'd always assumed I would. Following my onboarding session with HR, I also enrolled in the company's 401k plan with maximum matching contribution, something my parents had always dismissed as money you won't see until you're too old to enjoy it. 3-month performance reviews arrived faster than expected. Sitting in Charlotte's office, I nervously awaited feedback on my initial projects and analyses. "I'm impressed, Ava," she began referencing specific reports I'd compiled. "You have exceptional attention to detail while still maintaining a big picture perspective. That's rare in new analysts." The conversation concluded with unexpected news, a small role expansion, and a corresponding salary adjustment. "We typically don't revisit compensation until the 6-month mark, but your work quality warrants acceleration," Charlotte explained. Walking back to my desk, I fought the urge to call my parents with this achievement. Their validation, I reminded myself, had always come with conditions I could never quite meet. Instead, I texted Elijah and my growing friend circle, who celebrated with impromptu happy hour drinks after work. My apartment gradually transformed from merely functional to genuinely personal. Weekend flea market visits yielded affordable artwork for previously bare walls. A small secondhand bookshelf began filling with economics texts and fiction recommendations from colleagues. I hung twinkle lights around my bedroom window and splurged on quality bedding, small luxuries previously deemed unnecessary. On my nightstand sat the only physical reminder of Northwestern, a framed photo of graduation day with Olivia and her parents, my departmental honors cords visible against black robes. My parents remained conspicuously absent from my displayed memories, existing only in the occasional thoughts I couldn't entirely banish. 6 months into Seattle life, during a Sunday morning walk through my neighborhood's farmer's market, realization struck with unexpected clarity. I felt genuinely happy. Not the conditional happiness I'd always pursued through achievement or validation, but contentment rooted in daily experiences, morning coffee at my window, watching ferries cross the sound, stimulating work, challenges, growing friendships with people who appreciated me without agenda. The life I was building aligned with my values rather than expectations imposed by others. That evening, I wrote in my journal, "Home isn't necessarily where you're from. Sometimes it's where you finally feel permission to become yourself." 6 months and 3 weeks into my Seattle life, an unexpected name illuminated my phone screen during a Tuesday morning meeting. Mom. I excused myself, heart racing, and stepped into the hallway. Answering felt like reopening a healing wound, but silence wasn't sustainable forever. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Ava, is that really you?" Mom's voice sounded simultaneously familiar and foreign. "We weren't sure you'd pick up. It's been so long." Small talk followed awkward exchanges about Seattle weather, my apartment, their home repairs apparently completed through a neighbor's connection. Then came the announcement, "Your father and I have been talking. We want to visit you in Seattle next month. We found reasonably priced flights." The statement landed like a boulder in still water, rippling through my carefully constructed piece. "Visit here," I managed, mind racing through implications. "Why now? You're our daughter, Ava. We miss you and we've never seen Seattle." Something in her tone, the carefully casual mention of missing me, sandwiched between practical details, triggered old suspicions. "I'd need to check my work schedule." I stalled. "I'm pretty busy with projects right now." Several more calls followed over subsequent days, each increasing the pressure subtly. "We've already looked at hotels." Dad mentioned, "Though they're awfully expensive in the city, maybe we could stay with you." I held firm on separate accommodations, recommending a moderately priced hotel near Pike Place. Eventually, we settled on dates 3 weeks away, a Friday through Monday visit that would minimize my needed time off work. I spent those intervening weeks in a state of anxious preparation, both practical and emotional. Elijah listened patiently to my concerns over lunch. "Just remember, this is your territory now," he advised. "You get to set the terms." My therapist, Dr. Avery, whom I'd been seeing bi-weekly since month 2 in Seattle, helped me establish boundaries and rehearse responses to potential triggers. The morning of their arrival, I cleaned my apartment needlessly. They wouldn't be staying there yet. Old habits resurfaced automatically. I met them at their hotel lobby, the first in-person contact in over 7 months. Mom looked older, somehow, more lines around her eyes, hair colored a shade too dark for her complexion. Dad had gained weight, his familiar company polo straining across his middle. Awkward hugs followed, then immediate complaints about their flight delay, the hotel check-in process, and Seattle's confusing one-way streets. "This hotel is highway robbery," Dad grumbled while arranging his keycard and wallet. $200 a night for a room barely bigger than your bedroom at home. We could have saved all that money staying with you. Mom elbowed him subtly, but agreed. "It is awfully expensive just for sleeping." Old patterns emerged instantly. Their expectations that I'd manage their experience, absorb their complaints, prioritize their comfort above all else. I suggested a late lunch at a nearby restaurant known for Pacific Northwest specialties, hoping shared food might ease tensions. Throughout the meal, they peppered me with surface level questions about my job without seeming to register my answers, interrupting explanations of financial analysis models to comment on menu prices or nearby diner conversations. When the check arrived, Dad pointedly waited until I reached for it. "Well, you're the one with the fancy corporate job now," he said with a tight smile. The next day included standard tourist activities, Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, a harbor cruise. Each venue prompted similar reactions, complaints about prices, crowds, weather that wasn't quite perfect. My apartment tour elicited scrutiny rather than appreciation. "This is what you pay 4 times our mortgage for," Mom asked, examining my modest space. "And you don't even have a proper dining table." Dad opened my refrigerator without asking, commenting on my expensive organic food with disapproval. Dinner that evening at a mid-range restaurant downtown marked the inevitable turning point. After ordering, Mom casually mentioned exciting opportunities back home they wanted to discuss. Dad leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Carter Reed from my construction crew, you remember him? His brother-in-law is starting a property development company. They're looking for investors. Initial buy-in is just $5,000, but the returns could be massive." My stomach tightened as he continued. "We figured with your financial background, you'd recognize a good opportunity. Plus, you could advise us on the paperwork side." The truth crystallized with painful clarity. This visit wasn't about reconciliation, but fundraising. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt strangely calm, as though final confirmation of a long-suspected diagnosis brought relief rather than shock. "So this visit is about money?" I asked, directly interrupting his investment pitch. Both looked genuinely surprised at my bluntness. "Of course not," Mom protested. "We came to see you. This is just something we thought might interest you." "Really?" I maintained steady eye contact. "Because you haven't asked a single question about my life here. You haven't commented on my promotion or asked about my friends or shown interest in anything I'm building. But you've complained about prices constantly, and now you're asking for investment money." Dad's expression hardened. "That's completely unfair. We flew across the country to see you after you abandoned us without a word. I sent multiple messages before leaving. You missed my college graduation for a Super Bowl party, then immediately asked me for money. Saying these truths aloud in a public place felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. "Were your parents—" Mom hissed, glancing around to ensure neighboring tables couldn't hear. "You owe us respect, if nothing else." "Respect is earned," I replied quietly. "It requires mutual consideration. I respect myself enough now to recognize when I'm being used." Dad pushed back his chair abruptly. "If that's how you feel about family, maybe we made a mistake coming here." I nodded slowly. "Maybe you did." I signaled the waiter for the check, paid it without discussion, and walked out into the rainy Seattle evening alone. Back in my apartment, shaking with adrenaline, I received a barrage of text messages. "How dare you embarrass us like that after everything we've sacrificed for you?" The final message held familiar, manipulative weight. "We need a ride to the airport tomorrow morning since we can't afford Seattle's outrageous taxi prices." My response was simple. "There's a light rail station 3 blocks from your hotel that goes directly to the airport. It costs $3.25 per person." I silenced notifications afterward, made myself tea, and stood at my window watching fairy lights cross the darkened sound. The next morning, my parents checked out a day early, sending a final message that they were changing their flights to return home immediately, since clearly you don't want us here. No contact followed for several weeks, the longest complete silence since my move. When my mother finally texted again with a terse, "We arrived home safely, despite the inconvenience," I responded with equal brevity, "Glad you arrived safely." And that exchange marked a turning point, not the reconciliation they'd potentially envisioned, nor the complete severance I'd occasionally considered, but a distant relationship conducted on new terms. The visit, painful as it was, had clarified something essential. I could acknowledge my parents as part of my history without allowing them to determine my future. Exactly 1 year after graduation, I celebrated by taking a solo day trip to Mount Rainier National Park. The timing felt significant. 12 months since walking across that stage alone, 12 months of building independence 3,000 miles from where my story began. The mountain revealed itself intermittently through cloud breaks as I hiked the Skyline Trail, its massive presence simultaneously humbling and inspiring. Sitting on a rock outcropping overlooking vast wilderness, I reflected on my journey, not just geographic relocation, but emotional evolution. The weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Avery had gradually tapered to bi-weekly, then monthly check-ins. Through her guidance, I'd begun unpacking childhood patterns of seeking approval from sources constitutionally incapable of providing it. The hardest grief, she'd explained during one particularly breakthrough session, isn't losing what you had, but losing what you never had and finally accepting you never will. This concept, mourning the supportive parents I'd never actually had rather than the real ones I'd left behind, shifted something fundamental in my healing process. I'd built a chosen family in Seattle that constantly surprised me with its genuine support. Elijah had become my closest friend, introducing me to hiking groups and music venues, helping me navigate Seattle's social landscape. My technical mentor at work, Evelyn Sharma, regularly invited me to family dinners where her children showed me their schoolwork with the same enthusiasm my parents had never shown for mine. Zoe Patel from Legal had become a workout partner and confidant, sharing her own complex family history over post-yoga brunches. My professional growth at Technovate had exceeded expectations. 10 months into my role, I'd been promoted to lead analyst for our sustainability investment division, now managing a small team analyzing environmental impact bonds and green energy portfolios. The promotion came with educational benefits I was using to pursue advanced certification in sustainable finance. My apartment had transformed from sparse necessity to genuine home walls adorned with local artists' workbook shelves, filled with both professional resources and fiction, a small balcony garden thriving despite my novice gardening skills. Most significantly, I'd established financial independence with clearly defined boundaries. After the failed visit, I'd created structured parameters for family financial interaction. Birthday and Christmas cards contained modest gift cards, never cash. Occasional care packages included practical items but never monetary assistance. Automatic responses greeted any direct requests for loans or investments. My contact with my parents had settled into a predictable pattern: monthly phone calls lasting exactly 30 minutes, surface-level exchanges about weather and neighborhood happenings, no discussion of finances or past grievances. I maintained control over these interactions through scheduled timing and prepared talking points, ending calls promptly when old patterns emerged. This arrangement wasn't an ideal family connection, but it represented significant progress from both complete estrangement and toxic entanglement. The most profound change resided within me recognizing that parenthood exists through actions, not merely biology. My parents had contributed genetic material and basic survival necessities, but the nurturing guidance and unconditional support that defined true parenting had come from mentors, friends, and ultimately myself. Sitting on that mountainside, watching eagles soar on thermal currents, I acknowledged the complex truth that setting boundaries wasn't selfishness, but self-preservation. The graduation photos finally displayed on my bookshelf weren't the family portraits I'd once imagined, but images with Olivia's family and my economics professors, people who'd shown up not from obligation, but genuine care. A year into my Seattle life, I'd begun paying forward the support I'd received by mentoring first-generation college students through a local nonprofit. Meeting monthly with Seattle area teens navigating college applications without family guidance, I shared practical advice about scholarships, work-study balance, and financial aid forms. More importantly, I offered living proof that family limitations needn't determine future possibilities. Sometimes the families we're born into aren't equipped to nurture our particular dreams. I told Luna Garcia, a brilliantly talented young artist whose parents discouraged her creative pursuits, "That doesn't mean your dreams aren't valid or achievable." Mountain shadows lengthened as afternoon progressed toward evening. I packed my hiking gear and began the descent, each step reinforcing a truth I was still learning to fully embrace. Sometimes, the most loving choice in a relationship is distance space that allows both parties to be authentic rather than perpetuating harmful patterns. The weight I'd carried wasn't just expectations I couldn't meet, but the exhausting performance of pretending those expectations were reasonable. Relinquishing that burden hadn't just allowed me to walk away, it had given me wings to soar toward authentic connection and purpose. As I drove back toward Seattle, sunset painted the Olympic Mountains in gold and purple against a darkening sky. My phone contained 3 missed calls from my mother about a neighbor's new fence encroaching 6 inches into their property. Tomorrow, I would return that call, maintaining the boundaries that protected my hard-won peace while still acknowledging our connection. Tonight, however, belonged to celebration, 1 full year of choosing myself. 1 full year of building a life aligned with my values rather than defined by others' limitations. That night, standing on my small balcony watching fairy lights cross Puget Sound, I posted my first graduation photo publicly, me in cap and gown with Olivia's family genuinely smiling, despite red-rimmed eyes. The caption read simply, "One year later, I understand that sometimes walking alone across a stage isn't failure, but the first step toward finding your true path." Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? I'd love to read your stories in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing isn't staying. It's having the courage to walk away from situations that continually hurt you, even when those situations involve people you love. Please like this video. If my story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life journeys and share with someone who might need permission to prioritize their own healing. Thank you for walking this path with me today.